happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to another Chamber Check-In episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. Today, we get to hear from an organization that has been strengthening the state for over 35 years and have been a member of the chamber for over 20 years. It's the Idaho Community Foundation and the Idaho Non-Profit Center, and I'm going to bring on CEO Steve Burns.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm terrific. I also have the VP of Impact and Idaho Non-Profit Center, Kevin Bailey. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Hey, this is perfect timing as we head into the holiday season and kind of finishing up our 2024 and preparing for 2025. And also there's some new news that we get to talk about as well. Steve and Kevin, these chamber check-ins started as a way to engage with our members. And there's a ton of different ways that chamber members can engage in the community through chamber-related events and all of our different committees and advisory boards. But this is that virtual thing that came out of COVID, right? And so since 2020, we've featured over 500 chamber member businesses. So we're excited to have you both today.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start out with you, Steve. I'm going to change up the screen here. Steve, tell us a little bit about you, your background and history of work that led you to the Idaho Community Foundation.
Well, thanks again for having us on today. You know, I've been in this position for about 3 years now, but I've been in Boise for a long time. I ran the zoo for a little over 20 years. And I ran the Hogle Zoo down in Salt Lake for a few years. But, you know, after 24 years of running a zoo, it was time to do something else. And it was a wonderful experience. But, you know, wanted to be in Idaho, wanted to make a difference. This is where, you know, my wife and I, what we call home. And so I was an organization I was long familiar with, and the opportunity presented itself. And I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. I do remember that time at the zoo. And we've got a great new zoo director in Gene Peacock. And thanks for all your service there. That's huge. Kevin, I'm going to bring you on stage. Tell us a little bit about your background and history of work that led you into the nonprofit community.
Yeah, I'm kind of a nonprofit lifer. I also have an education background, was a teacher for a couple of years earlier in my career. But I've been in Idaho for over 6 years. The job that brought me to Idaho was to take over as CEO of the United Way in Pocatello. So did that for 3 years and then got recruited over to the Idaho Non-Profit Center, which I was familiar with because we were a member of the Idaho Non-Profit Center back when I was running the Pocatello United Way. So it's been a little over 3 years now in this role. And then, of course, you know, we just announced this great merger together with Idaho Community Foundation. So really a whole new chapter. But kind of my background is a nonprofit lifer, I guess.
Kevin, while we still have you on the big screen here, tell us a little bit about the background and origin story of Idaho Non-Profit Center.
Yeah, so over 20 years ago, there really wasn't a central resource organization that was looking out for the sector. If you think about, you know, all the other industries and sectors across our state, from agriculture, technology, you name it, they all have kind of industry associations, industry watchdogs, organizations that are helping them upskill their workforce. There really wasn't that existing in Idaho for nonprofits. And at the same time, nationally, there was starting to emerge these ideas of state associations of nonprofits, basically centralized sort of organizations that could help with advocacy, capacity building for the whole sector, right? All charitable nonprofits operating within that state. So a group of our founders, when they got together, and it was, you know, largely led by nonprofit executives themselves who realized we needed that voice, we needed that type of resource for nonprofits to be successful in Idaho. And it was launched, the Idaho Nonprofit Center. The name has changed over the years. I think it was originally the Idaho Nonprofit Development Center, then became the Idaho Nonprofit Center, eventually became a membership organization. And kind of at the heart of our mission through that whole time has been around strengthening nonprofits, being the voice for nonprofits, and really supporting and lifting up nonprofits.
Thank you, Kevin. Steve, give us a little bit of the background of Idaho Community Foundation, kind of its origin story, and how was it founded and why?
So community foundations, just a quick explanation of what they are. You know, rather than someone creating a private foundation where there's a lot of work that goes into that, a a lot of legal work, accounting work. You have to invest the money. People will come to us instead, and they'll create a charitable fund. And essentially, we do all of the work associated with being the foundation, and they get to keep the fun part, which is, well, where would you like the donations to go? And depending on what you're trying to accomplish, there's different types of funds, but that's the essence of it. So back in 1988, there was a group of folks that got together and said they wanted to create a statewide community foundation. They really wanted to look at it as a vehicle to help unite the state. It was really led by John Ferry, who at the time was the CEO of Boise Cascade, and Alice Hennessy, who worked with him there. They were really the two primary launchers. And, you know, in the 36 years that we've now been in existence, we have granted out more than $185 million across the state of Idaho. We have made grants in all 44 counties. And we have over 700 of those funds that have been created. There have been over 1,000 funds that have been created over that time, but they weren't all designed to last forever. So we currently have more than 700 of those funds that last year generated about $12 million in grants across the state. And this year it's going to be closer to $14 million.
Wow. Wow, Steve. What a great story. And I love the collaboration between the two organizations. I'm going to show a quick little video to kind of get a little bit more of the story and get some visual stuff here. Give me a second. I'll bring it on stage here. I'll play that video.
Philanthropy is a way of life in Idaho. We are all part of a community, and taking care of Idaho communities takes all of us. Whether we work at a nonprofit, participate in giving as a family or individually, or advise clients about charitable gift planning. The Idaho Community Foundation has been Idaho's philanthropic partner for more than 35 years. We understand Idaho and the diverse needs in communities across the state. The Idaho Community Foundation strengthens Idaho communities by connecting community-minded Idahoans with the causes that matter most to them. We help Idahoans statewide establish philanthropic funds that will help take care of their causes and communities for generations to come. Nonprofit organizations support Idahoans in every community across the state. They need everyone's help to continue their vital work and services that strengthen the Idaho communities we all love. Whether your family has been in Idaho for generations or you recently moved here, the Idaho Community Foundation is here to help you make your charitable giving easier and more impactful. Together, we are the community, and we are the community's foundation. Let's do good together.
Wow, what a great video. I saw a lot of people that I recognized in there. Ray and Linda Stark, for example. I'm blown away. So Kevin and Steve, now you've combined forces. I guess between the two of you, tell us how that came about and kind of the reasoning why and how that's going to elevate even the state more with this impact.
Go ahead, Steve.
I can start.
Okay, I'll start. Yeah, I think, when Steve and I, we both started at around the same time, roughly 3 years ago. And, for a long time, our members, our 850 nonprofit members have been recipients of grants, right, from the Idaho Community Foundation. And as we went out in the field and asked people, hey, how do we better support the sector? How do we continue to provide what the sector needs, what nonprofits need? The top of the list is funding, right? And we can do all the capacity building, all the workforce development, all the advocacy we want. But without that funding, nonprofits aren't going to be able to provide those key and essential services. We like to say Idaho runs on nonprofits. So back when I was in Pocatello, our United Way was right on Center and Main Street. Down the street, you had the Idaho Food Bank branch. Then you had the domestic violence support services. Then you look up into the foothills just a few hundred yards away, and all the trails that we like to conserve and hike on, maintained by nonprofits. Friday art walks took place right there in downtown. And you just think about how much nonprofits impact our day-to-day life and the thriving of our communities. And the fact that we couldn't provide grants because we weren't a grant-making organization, but we could do the other side of the coin, really led me to ask the question, how could we do this better? And then, Steve and I started talking, and I'll let him pick up from there how that progressed.
As part of that, before we had that first ever meeting, I've come to appreciate just how big the state of Idaho is. and we're both two organizations trying to cover the same geographic area. But, for us, we're trying to grow a culture of philanthropy in Idaho. And as an organization, we're only going to have so much impact in that area. I mean, we'll have some, but we can't do it by ourselves. And so one of the things that we were looking to do is say, how do we help nonprofits grow their ability to fundraise, to extend their development efforts? And so this became a natural extension. If we could partner with the Idaho Non-Profit Center and help nonprofits across the state do that, then together we're going to have a much greater chance of growing that culture of philanthropy. As a state, we rely incredibly heavy on our nonprofits, and we have to make sure that the culture of philanthropy keeps up with their needs because they provide so many of those services that Kevin just outlined. And so we just had coffee one day over at the Roosevelt Market, and we just started talking. And we asked ourselves the question of, if we could go back in time and recreate these two organizations, would we have created one or two organizations? And we both said we probably would have just created one, and then it just went from there.
I think this is exactly the way that it needs to go, because we have, like Kevin's talking about, and you're talking about, I think there's probably almost 10,000, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, registered nonprofits in the state of Idaho. It could be a little bit less than that.
Yeah, registered nonprofits for sure. And then financially active nonprofits across the state, meaning they have $1 or more of revenue a year, about 2,000.
And I wonder, I can only imagine that there's probably some duplicating efforts out there, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think this is amazing, combining efforts. What does that look like going into 2025 for the two organizations? Are we going to see Idaho Gives a little bit differently? Are we going to have, is Idaho Community Foundation going to be seen a little bit differently? Tell us a little bit about the evolution of that.
I could start this time. It took a lot, and we had some serious conversations along the way. The nice part about all of those conversations is that every time we should have had a difficult conversation, they weren't that difficult to have. They were pretty easy. And so we thought this is a really good cultural fit. There's a lot of synergy. My hat's off to Kevin and everybody at the Idaho Non-Profit Center board and their staff who really said, okay, we want to have these serious conversations about this. All of the Nonprofit Center board members have now become board members of the Community Foundation, and all of the staff has been hired on as Community Foundation staff. And we're in the process of, doing all of that integration, and it's going really well. We've had joint staff meetings. We're trying to figure out all our office space for the, to put the two organizations into one. So that's all going. And now we're beginning on some of those strategic planning efforts in terms of a joint mission, a joint vision, those types of things. But we both offer various programs, so we're looking to combine more of those. We think that together we can, promote Idaho Gives even more. We'll have a bigger marketing budget between the two of us in order to be able to do things like that. But I think what's really important is that we now have the opportunity to connect donors, people who are interested in philanthropy in Idaho, with more nonprofits. We have joint programming, and there's just going to be more opportunities to connect those two. And that's exactly what we need in this state if we're going to grow that culture of philanthropy that we talked about a minute ago.
Kevin, add on to that, please.
Yeah, Steve summed it up really well. I think, we're at that process. Last Friday, actually, our staff became full staff on payroll at Idaho Community Foundation. And so on the one hand, Monday showed up and Monday was the same as it would have been otherwise. But on the other hand, now we're part of a larger team, and there's, I think Steve's at 24, 25 of us now in the full org. And so that process of enculturating, assimilating, learning from each other, that's ongoing. And frankly, it's a really exciting prospect because there is so many uncovered things in terms of, who knows who and what relationships can benefit our side of the work and the traditional philanthropy side of the work. And so it's going to be a full year of sort of figuring that out and seeing where those synergies are. But it's already off to a great start.
That's awesome. Well, two great leaders and a great team from both sides I've got to work directly with. And so excited to see the future and discover what the future holds. Tell me a little bit about kind of how can the business community engage with y'all now? Maybe help me understand when I'm out talking to my business members and new business owners who are part of the community. What's the story I should be telling? How can they engage with both y'all? I guess start with you, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. One of our signature programs, for example, is Idaho Gives. We have a pretty lengthy list of corporate sponsors for that program. That program couldn't get off the ground without all the corporate support. Our presenting sponsor in the past has been Idaho Central Credit Union, for example. I know they're really involved in the chamber, as well as dozens of other great companies all around the state and in the Treasure Valley. So that's one way, but also just kind of starting the conversation. I mean, Steve can talk about how Chobani has engaged in the Magic Valley with their philanthropic giving as a company. So there's tons of opportunity there. Engaging in some of our capacity building work to support nonprofits in their organizational effectiveness. There really is a million different ways to plug in, and I'll let Steve go from there here.
Kevin mentioned we had an event down in Twin Falls about a month ago, so it's still top of mind. And Hamdi Ulukaya, who is the founder and CEO of Chobani, spoke at that event. We've had a partnership with them for a number of years, in which they created a fund at the Idaho Community Foundation, and then all of their giving goes through the foundation. So our staff helps them with that grant making process, helping to advise, making sure that it's all done, according to IRS standards. So if any company ever wants to talk about what is their, way to give back, what is their strategy for doing that, we're happy to have that conversation. If a company ever wants to talk about, how do I get my employees involved? Are there opportunities for my employees or me to serve on any kind of nonprofit boards? We're happy to have that conversation and, look for nonprofits out there that would be a good match for them. And then corporate sponsorship, and whether their donations would be coming to us or whether they'd be going to any nonprofit across the Treasure Valley, we applaud the many companies who are doing good work. In a couple weeks, one of our longtime partners is KTVB, and they have 7 Cares Idaho Shares, in which thousands of people from across the Treasure Valley all contribute to that. And we have been their philanthropic partner for a long time. When you're giving your donation, you're actually giving that donation to the Idaho Community Foundation, because Channel 7 is not a nonprofit. And then we work with Channel 7 to get those grants out to the organizations that are doing that good work. And so there's another example of how we partner with a company. And, we're so proud of that partnership with Channel 7. They're just awesome folks.
Steve and Kevin, I have idahocf.org scrolling on the bottom of the screen. One of the things I did not know about the Idaho Community Foundation was that it all starts from an idea. And when you see a problem and you want to fix it, whatever it is, providing coats, providing food, or whatever it is in the community, the first place that I would go to if I wanted to start a foundation would be the Idaho Community Foundation. And so you provide all of those resources. And then obviously with Idaho Non-Profit Center during Idaho Gives, it's a wonderful place that brings everybody together on the same day to give to a cause of your choice. It makes it so streamlined and easy. I really love what you guys have done over the years, and now how it's going to even greater impact the state. Let me check my notes here, make sure we're on track. Scholarships that are given. Talk a little bit about that, Steve, and then we'll go on to closing with anything else.
So we've got about 70 scholarships that we administer across the state. If someone wants to create a scholarship with us, we're happy to have that conversation. There's a variety of different ways that you can set it up. So we talk about, what type of students are you looking to help? Is there a certain, major that you're looking for them to have? Is there a certain geographic area that you want to serve? Is it, we want to give scholarships to kids from Boise or kids from Meridian, wherever. And, a bunch of those scholarships go to 4-year schools, but they also go to community colleges. They go to places like, the Lineman College for technical training, things like that. So it doesn't have to be constrained to just 4-year universities. There's lots of different options, but there's a lot that goes into a scholarship fund. And so working with an organization like us, we know how to do it. We know how to make sure that all the rules are being followed and that it's going to be successful and accomplish what it is that someone wants to accomplish.
All right, as we're closing up shop here on our discussion, what kind of final things would you like to educate the public on while we have you? Now let's start with you, Kevin.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks don't realize that the nonprofit sector is an economic contributor to our state's economy, right? It's the fourth largest employment sector in the state. A lot of people don't realize just how many people are employed by nonprofits. Over 70,000 Idahoans are directly employed by nonprofits. Again, this idea Idaho runs on nonprofits, and that's true because people are the programs. They carry out those vital services, whether it's meal delivery to seniors, health case management for folks in and out of housing, whatever it is. Nonprofits are at the core of that usually, and so I think the more that our business community, the more that our general public can get involved in giving time, talent, and treasure. That's what our sector needs, and in order to meet those continuing demands on it, especially as our population booms in this area.
Kevin, I just got to thank you for everything you've done and also serving as chair of our nonprofit council for the chamber. You've just been a joy, and you've elevated that group.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, Steve, what kind of closing comments you got for us?
Well, we talked about growing that culture of philanthropy, and while I know many very generous Idahoans, we do lag behind many other states in terms of the amount that is given on a per capita basis. And so, we just encourage people to continue to give. And sometimes that is actual, that's dollars. Sometimes that's time. Sometimes it's just your insight if you're volunteering for a board. But also, over the last 5 years, according to a U of I study that came out, 500,000 people have moved to Idaho in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And so what I would say is welcome. We're glad you're here. You've moved to a really nice place, and we invite you to help get involved in philanthropy in Idaho. Find your cause that you're interested in. Find that nonprofit that helps you achieve what you're trying to achieve philanthropically. And if we can be of any help with anybody who's moved here, anybody who's been here their whole life, give us a holler, and we're happy to sit down and have that conversation about how do you achieve the philanthropic goals that are important to you and your family or your organization or your company.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Kevin, for taking some time to help share the story. Congratulations on combining efforts to make even a greater impact in Idaho. Thank you for your investment in the chamber as well. It means a lot to us, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. We're coming to the end of the year. We got taxes coming up, and I don't want to think about that, but if you have an opportunity to give now, now's a great time to be thinking about that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on, Paul.
Thanks for all the chamber does. Thank you.
Awesome. You guys have a great weekend, and remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for next week. I get to share a member who's offering life-changing hearing opportunities in the Valley as well. Stay tuned for next week. Bye, you guys.